Wendigo, the call of the forest. What if there was something out there, something that shouldn't be in our world, something that watches us waiting for the right moment to call us? Would you hear that call? Hear? And would he? My name is Ethan Carter, and until that night I thought I understood what fear means. I've been through fires that consumed entire houses. I've seen explosions at gas stations, and I've even rescued people who were seconds away from death. But nothing compares to the horror I experienced in the depths of that forest. I've been a firefighter for 4 years. I grew up in a small town called Cold Haven, wedged between the mountains of Colorado. A quiet place, full of tourists during the winter, and even more secluded in the warmer months. The city is next to a dense forest, untouched by civilization. A place where many like to camp, but which also carries its own folklore. At the barracks where I work, I always heard stories about the former fire chief. Samuel Pierce, who died 30 years ago, burned alive in a rescue gone wrong. But according to legend, he never left. It is said that on the quietest nights, he appears before dangerous calls, a warning that something bad is going to happen. We named him Sam the Watchtower. I never believed these stories, at least not until that night. It was late September, early autumn. The cold was beginning to intensify, and the smell of smoke from campfires mingled with the wind. I was on call with Jake, a rookie who had just returned from his paternity leave, and Tucker, our most experienced operator. We called him Old Tuck because he was already active before some of us were even born. The dawn was calm. Too quiet. Tucker slept in the truck's shed, a practice forbidden, but ignored because he always woke up at the first sound of the alarm. Jake and I watched TV, trying to keep our minds busy. It was then that Tucker appeared running, his face pale and his eyes wide. I saw Sam. Jake laughed, chewing on a spoonful of cereal. "Are you sure it wasn't a nightmare?" Tucker didn't laugh. His face was cold, his body trembling. He opened his mouth to say something, but before he could, the alarm went off. The radio squeaked. Forest fire. The coordinates indicated a secluded hut in the middle of the mountains, far from any civilization. But it wasn't just a fire. The call also called for police and ambulance, which meant that something much worse was happening there. I felt a chill run down my spine. Legend had it that Sam only appeared before deadly missions. We put on our gear quickly. Tucker took the wheel. Jake got into the back of the truck and I went in the passenger seat. The radio crackled with fragmented voices from the switchboard, as if it were interfering. Only a few words were understandable. "No one should enter. Locked from the outside. Let it burn." The truck shot down the dark road, and the red lights reflected off the wet asphalt. The silence inside the cabin was stifling. No one wanted to say out loud what we were thinking. As we approached the indicated area, the fog began to become dense, so thick that the headlights could barely pass through it. And then, in the distance, we saw the flames cutting through the darkness. The cabin was on fire, but something didn't make sense. The fire did not spread to the surrounding forest. He burned only the hut, as if he were confined to it, as if someone had lit it on purpose. And then, in the middle of the road, we spotted a woman standing there. She was barefoot, wearing only a white nightgown, her hair disheveled, and her eyes wide in sheer despair. And then she cried out, "Don't! Put out the fire, let it burn!" I wanted to run to her to get her out of there. Jake was already getting out of the truck to help her, but something made me hesitate. It was then that I noticed the door of the cabin. It wasn't just closed. She was chained on the outside. Someone locked it up. Someone didn't want whoever was inside to leave. My heart raced. "Is there anyone in there?" I asked. The woman was crying, desperate. "No, don't go in. He's inside. He's burning." Before I could ask her what she meant, I heard the noise, a dull blow inside the hut, something striking the wooden door, something trying to get out, something that shouldn't be alive. With a blow of my axe, I began to break the chain of the door. If there was a chance someone was alive inside, I couldn't just ignore it. The woman screamed, held by Jake. "No, no, no!" The chain fell to the ground with a metallic noise, but before I could open the door fully, a pale, skeletal hand pierced through the broken wood, too long to be human. So thin that the bones seemed to pierce the skin. The fingers ended in sharp claws, and then came the sound, the scream. It was not human. It wasn't from an animal. It was a primal sound, a howl of pain and hunger at the same time. I felt an ice in my chest. That was not a person. The woman fainted in Jake's arms. I took a step back, still holding the axe. Then that another voice emerged from the darkness. He was a man. He wore an old firefighter's uniform, covered in ashes and burns. His voice was low but firm and terrifying. "Let it burn." I wanted to look at Jake. He wanted to see if Tucker saw him too, but I couldn't, because deep down I already knew who he was. Sam, O Sentinella. What was inside the hut? What really happened that night? Sometimes fear makes us doubt what is real. But what if the fear is right? And if what you see is exactly what's there, waiting? The heat of the fire licked my face as I looked at that man. Sam, the Sentinel, or at least something that looked like him. The firefighter's uniform was burned and covered in soot. His skin was the color of charcoal, cracked like old wood. But his eyes were alive. I wanted to ask who or what he was, but my mouth was dry, my muscles locked. Every instinct inside me screamed to run, but the door behind me shook. Something inside the hut was trying to get out, and then Sam spoke again, with a frightening calm. "Let it burn." I felt the weight of the decision crushing my chest. It was my obligation to save anyone inside, but what if there was no one? What if what was there was not human? Tucker broke the silence in a hoarse voice. "Ethan, go ahead." But I was already on the move. Before I could hesitate, I pushed the door of the cabin open, and it was at that moment that all hell broke loose. The heat was suffocating. The air was dense, impregnated with the smell of burnt flesh. The smoke blinded me, making my eyes sting. I moved forward carefully, my axe firmly in my hands. The hut was almost destroyed inside. Furniture on fire, walls crackling with heat. But the worst thing was not the fire. The worst thing was the thing. That was in the middle of the room. At first I thought it was a man, but then he turned around. The skin was thin, almost transparent. The face, it was too long. His mouth extended beyond normal, full of sharp teeth. Your eyes, they were not there, just two dark, empty holes. He screamed, and the sound was not human. The dread paralyzed me. The Wendigo was not just a legend. He was there, and I was stuck with it. The creature moved fast, too fast. She moved forward, and I only had time to raise the axe. The blow caught him on the shoulder, but it seemed to cut only skin and nothing else. Wendigo didn't even react. He just grabbed me by the arm and threw me to the other side of the hut. The pain exploded in my shoulder as I hit the wall. I tried to get up, but the creature was already coming again. It was then that Tucker appeared at the door. "Ethan, pay Gisso!" Something flew towards me, a gallon of gasoline. I understood right away. My axe wouldn't do anything, but the fire was our only chance. Without thinking, I poured the gasoline on the ground between me and the creature. My hands trembled as I pulled a lighter from my pocket. I looked at that monster once more. He stared at me, his mouth still open, as if he expected something from me. Maybe he was waiting for me to fail, but I didn't fail. The fire rose in seconds. The flames engulfed everything. The Wendigo screamed, this time in pain, and then he attacked. The last thing I saw before everything turned into a blur was the creature coming towards me through the fire. I woke up with a smoky taste in my mouth. My body was heavy, as if every muscle was on fire. I was outside the cabin. The night was cold. The fire had subsided, but it was still burning the remains of the cabin. The creature, it was nowhere. Jake was kneeling next to me, pressing my shoulder. "Are you okay?" I tried to answer, but my throat burned. I could only cough. Tucker was standing, looking at the wreckage. "We didn't find anything inside. Nothing." I tried to sit down, but everything spun. Nothing. I saw that thing. I fought her, but there was no trace. No body. Not a bone. Nothing. That's when I realized something even scarier. The woman who begged us to let the cabin burn. She disappeared. Police arrived later, accompanied by medical teams. We said there was a fire and that we went in to look for victims. That's all we talked about. Why the truth? The truth was impossible to explain. I was away from work for a week. Nightmares haunted me every night. I dreamed of the hut, of the creature. But worst of all, he dreamed of Sam the Sentinel. Every time I woke up, I saw a shadow in the corner of my room. A tall man wearing a burnt uniform. He never moved, but I felt like he was expecting something, waiting for me. Days later, I received an envelope with no sender. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper with only one sentence written. "The fire did not kill him. You set him free." The words on the paper danced before my eyes, but I couldn't process the meaning. My fingers trembled as I held that yellowish leaf, feeling a chill rise up my spine. Who sent this? How did they know about what happened that night? My mouth was dry. His heart was pounding. The fire should have been the end of that thing, but somehow it wasn't. Worse than that. If I really freed him, where is he now? The following days were a blur. I avoided talking about the fire. I avoided even thinking about him. Jake and Tucker tried to move on. For them, it was just an intense calling, a rescue gone wrong. There was no body. There was no proof that anything else happened, but I knew the truth, and the truth was following me. The shadow in the corner of my room, the noises in the forest when I came home at night, and the worst, the nightmares. Every night I dreamed of the cabin burning, with the Wendigo coming out of the flames. But now, in my dreams, he didn't run away into the forest. He came to me. Then, 4 days later, I got the call. The phone rang in the middle of the night. The shrill sound ripping me out of a nightmare. I looked at the screen. Unknown number. I answered in a hoarse voice. "Hello?" Nothing. Just static. "Who is it?" Then, in the midst of the silence, a voice emerged. Low. Almost a whisper. "You set him free." My breathing stopped. My body froze. Before I could react, the line dropped. I sat on the bed for several minutes, holding the phone tightly. It was not possible. Was someone kidding me? Or was he really still out there? The next morning, Tucker called me. "Ethan, you need to come here, now." The tone of his voice gave me goosebumps. I drove to the local police station where Tucker and Jake were outside. Their faces were pale, serious. They found a body in the forest. His stomach turned. Who? Jake swallowed dry. The woman. The woman who tried to stop us from entering the cabin. The woman who disappeared without a trace. They took me to the place. Her body was in the middle of the woods, a few kilometers from the destroyed cabin. But it wasn't the fire that killed her. She was pale, thin, as if all the flesh had been sucked from the bones, and his eyes had disappeared. I swallowed hard. My chest tightened. I had seen this before, in the cabin, in that thing, Wendigo. "What? You could have done that?" Jake asked, his voice charged with fear. I didn't answer, because I knew. The sheriff called us and showed us something that made me lose my temper. The woman held a crumpled piece of paper in her stiff hand. When we opened, the blood froze. There was only one word scribbled there, almost illegible. Hunger. I pulled away from the body, taking a deep breath. It couldn't be. I couldn't, but it was happening. That night I tried to pretend that it was all just coincidence. But deep down, I knew it was impossible. The Wendigo was loose, and I was hungry. When I got home, I felt a strange presence. The air felt colder than it should have been. I closed the door and locked the windows. But deep down I knew it wouldn't make a difference, not against him. At that moment my cell phone vibrated. A new message, no sender, with just 2 words, "I'm here." My body was paralyzed. The phone slipped out of my hand. No, that was impossible. By this time, I was used to nightmares. But now I wasn't sleeping. The noise came from the back door, a slow scratch followed by a low, deep noise. One breath, I had to muster all the courage to walk there. My steps were heavy, my heart hammered inside my chest. When I got to the door, I stood still. The handle turned. Someone was trying to get in. My mind screamed to run, to take my car and disappear. But I knew it wouldn't work. He was going to find me. So I did the only thing I could. I grabbed a gallon of gas from the garage. I went to the door, and when the handle turned again, I poured gasoline on the floor. If he came in, I was going to burn it. My hand held a match, trembling, come the silence extended. So the noises stopped. The other side's breath disappeared, waited, seconds, minutes, and then he left. The next morning, I woke up on the couch, exhausted. For the first time in days, I didn't dream, but there was something wrong. I felt a weight in my chest, a feeling that something was not yet finished. That's when I saw it. On the living room mirror, written with a dark substance, there was a single sentence. My body froze. Wendigo hadn't given up, and now I was next. What could I do? Flee? Fight? If he really couldn't be killed by fire, what could stop him? I needed answers. And the only way to get them was to go back to where it all began. Back to the forest, back to the cabin, back to hell. If he can't be killed by fire, what can stop him? That question echoed in my mind as I stared at the phrase scrawled in the mirror. I wanted to believe it was a nightmare, that all this was just the result of my tiredness and paranoia, but it wasn't. I knew this because with each passing day, he got closer. I couldn't run away. I couldn't hide. The only solution was to face him. The forest. It was the only place where I could find answers, where it all began, where everything needed to end. That cabin, or what was left of it. Maybe he still kept something, some clue, but I couldn't go alone. Tucker and Jake wouldn't understand. They thought that all of this was just a bizarre sequence of tragic events, but nothing more than that. I needed someone who knew the truth. It was then that I remembered. The sheriff. He found the woman's body. He saw the paper. He knew something was wrong. If anyone could help me, it was him. I went to the police station early in the morning. The rising sun illuminated the city, but even in that light, I felt that something was wrong. When I walked in, Sheriff Dale Rowan was sitting behind the desk, reading a report. He looked up and analyzed me, as if he already knew why I was there. "I thought you would come. This caught me off guard." "What do you mean by that?" he sighed, resting his hands on the table. "After that night, I knew you wouldn't be able to just forget." I sat facing him, my heart was pounding. "I need to know what's going on." Sheriff Rowan stared at me for a long moment before standing up. "Come with me." He took me to an old file in the back of the police station. The shelves were covered with dust, and the papers yellowed with time. He pulled out a thick dossier and threw it on the table. "You're not the first to see this thing." I opened the file and started flipping through. Body photos, descriptions of attacks, ancient testimonies of people who talked about a creature in the shadows. And then I saw something that made me hold my breath, a photo of the cabin, but it was not destroyed. "That was 30 years ago," Rowan said. "Before the fire." I turned another page, and then I saw a picture of the former fire chief, Samuel Pierce. He knew. I looked up at Rowan. "What?" The sheriff folded his arms. "Sam tried to kill him, and it failed. I felt a shiver down my spine. If Sam had already tried to end that thing and couldn't, How could I? Rowan pulled out another sheet and placed it in front of me. It was a newspaper clipping. Family mysteriously disappears in the forest. No trace found. The dates matched the time of the cabin fire. I swallowed. Do you think it was him? The sheriff agreed. The Wendigo is no ordinary monster, Ethan. He does not die with fire. It does not disappear. He just waits. My hands were cold. What does he want? Rowan pursed his lips as if he didn't want to say. But then he blurted out, he wants a new host. The air came out of my lungs like a punch. That was it. The Wendigo wasn't just a creature. He was a spirit of hunger, from the darkness, and he needed a body to live. Did he choose me? My voice came out almost like a whisper. The sheriff did not immediately respond, but then he nodded. My chest tightened. I could feel the weight of this revelation pressing against every cell in my body. If he wanted me, I had no choice left. I needed to put a stop to it, and the only way was to face it. I need to go back to the cabin. Sheriff Rowan took a deep breath. Then I'll go with you. That night, we grabbed our gear and drove to the forest entrance. The path was steeped in mist. The wind whistled through the trees. Every step we took seemed to pull us deeper into that place. And then, in the midst of the darkness, the sound began, low at first, but growing, a long, deep growl. We stopped. The sheriff cocked his gun. I clasped the axe in my hands. He was here, and this time he wasn't going away. The forest closed in around us. The bright eyes appeared in the darkness. Wendigo wasn't expecting it. He was already hunting us. The forest seemed alive all around us. The wind cut between the trees, bringing an impossible cold for that time of year. But it wasn't the weather that scared me. It was presence. I could feel it. He was there, watching, waiting, and this time he wasn't going to disappear into the shadows. This time he was going to finish what he started. I clasped the axe in my hands. Sheriff Rowan cocked the gun. Then came the sound. Something moving between the trees. Fast. We turned around, trying to keep up, but it was impossible. The Wendigo was a shadow, a blur in the fog. He didn't run, it slid, and then he attacked. An invisible force hit me, throwing me against a tree. The air came out of my lungs. The impact sent my axe flying out of my hand. Rowan fired 1, 2, thrice. The shots echoed in the forest. But then, silence. The sheriff breathed heavily, his eyes scouring the darkness. "Did you hit him?" I asked, trying to get up. Rowan did not answer. Then I knew the truth. I hadn't hit anything. The Wendigo was still there, and he didn't have to hide anymore. A huge shadow rose between the trees. I couldn't see his face completely, just bits in the dim moonlight. The eyes, there were no eyes, just black holes, empty, deep. His mouth was too wide, his teeth sharp as shards of glass. And then he spoke. "Hunger." The word came out slurred, as if it were said with difficulty, as if it were something learned and not natural. My blood ran cold. He knew how to speak. He understood us, and worse, he had been waiting for this moment. Rowan tried to shoot again, but something knocked him out. It was too fast for me to react. A blur of bones and shadows. The sheriff screamed as he was thrown to the ground, his gun slipping out of his hand. I staggered, staggering. The axe was too far away. I needed to act. Now! I grabbed Rowan's revolver and took aim. The Wendigo turned his head to me, as if he were curious, as if I were studying myself. My finger squeezed the trigger. Bang! The shot hit the creature's chest. She did not back down. She didn't bleed. She laughed. The Wendigo's laughter echoed through the forest. She was distorted, almost human, but wrong. It was then that I understood. I saw the cabin burning. I saw Sam the Watchtower trying to do the same as me, and failing. The Wendigo could not be killed, at least not in a common way. But there was a way. He needed a host. That's why he didn't kill Sam completely. That's why he chose me, and now he wanted to finish what he started. Sheriff Rowan groaned on the ground, trying to get up. The Wendigo was still on him, its sharp claws pressed against his chest. I needed to act, not forcefully, but with fire. I ran to my backpack and pulled out the gas can. The Wendigo stopped, as if he knew what I was about to do. Her empty eyes turned to me. He knew. I opened the gallon and poured the liquid over me. "If you want me." My voice came out firm, even with fear growing in my chest. I threw a lit match on the floor. "Then come and get me in hell." The flames rose instantly. The heat was unbearable, but I didn't stop. I ran towards Wendigo. He hesitated. For the first time, he hesitated. Then he screamed, not anger, but out of fear. He tried to retreat, but I caught up with him. I grabbed the creature, feeling its dry, cold skin against my burning arms, and then everything became light. The pain was intense, but temporary. The fire enveloped us, but not like before. He didn't just burn, he cleaned up. The Wendigo struggled. His body writhed, the shadows around him fading, being consumed by the light. And then he disappeared. The flames went out. The air became light, and for the first time since that night, the silence didn't seem threatening. When I opened my eyes, the sky was getting clear. I was lying on the floor, my body exhausted. Sheriff Rowan stood beside me, breathing heavily. "Is it over?" he asked, his voice hoarse. I looked around. There were no more shadows, no sound, no presence. The forest was normal, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Legend said that the Wendigo could not be killed, but the legend was wrong. It could be destroyed, not with weapons, not with fire, but with sacrifice. He fed on fear, despair. But when one faced him without hesitation, he lost his power. I didn't kill him. I denied it, and that was enough. We returned to the city at sunrise. The police station was silent when we entered. I looked at myself in the mirror. The marks of the fire were still on my body, but there was no pain. The Wendigo was no longer a shadow behind me. He was just a distant nightmare. But before I could feel completely relieved, my cell phone vibrated. A message, no number, no sender, just one sentence. He wasn't alone. The words on my phone screen burned in my mind like living coals. I should feel relief. The Wendigo had been destroyed, its shadow consumed by fire. But this message, she said the opposite. My breathing became short. What if I hadn't won? What if all this was just the beginning? After that night, nothing went back to normal. The city continued with its routine. The forest fire was recorded as an isolated case. No other creatures were found, no other body. But inside me, something was different. I was no longer the same man who entered that forest. The days passed slowly, but the nights were worse. I woke up sweaty, smelling the smoke, hearing that voice. Hunger? It didn't matter how many times I told myself it was over. I knew the truth, because every night I felt something watching. The message I received had no sender, no phone number. It was impossible to trace, but someone knew. Someone sent me that warning, and somehow, someone wanted me to keep looking. Deep down, I already knew what I needed to do. If there was another Wendigo, or something worse, I needed to find out, and that meant going back to the police station. Sheriff Rowan was still there when I arrived. His face was marked by exhaustion, the sunken eyes of someone who had not slept well for days. "Did you see the message?" I asked, straight to the point. He nodded slowly. "I saw. Do you know who sent it?" He let out a long sigh, crossing his arms. "No, but I have an idea." He pulled a file from the drawer and threw it on the table. I already recognized those old pages, reports of disappearances, attack logs. But there was something new there. A photo. My skin froze. It was a thermal impression taken by a satellite. It showed movement in the forest, but not just in one place. There were several marks. There were many. The legend of the Wendigo spoke of a solitary creature, an entity that devoured souls, corrupted bodies. But if that were true, Who were the others? The sheriff slid another sheet to me. These marks are recent. My eyes scanned the data. They were emerging after the fire. After I burned that monster, my throat dried up. Do you think we've released something? Rowan nodded. I don't think he was ever alone. I was just waiting. I didn't know what to answer, because deep down I felt that he was right. After days without answers, I was facing an impasse. I could try to forget, pretend that all that never happened, to move on and hope that nothing else would come back. Or he could hunt for the truth, to find out what was really behind this story. But I knew that if I chose that, I would never have peace again. The Wendigo was a warning, a first glimpse of what lived in those shadows, and now I had messed with something bigger. Before deciding anything, I went to the forest one last time. The wreckage of the cabin was still there, ashes, charred wood. But something seemed wrong. The place seemed emptier than before, as if something had left, or worse, as if he were waiting to return. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. That's over. I wanted to believe those words, but deep down, I knew. Omedo never disappears. He just finds a new place to hide. As he walked home that night, the wind whispered through the trees, and for a moment, I listened. Low, almost imperceptible but real, hunger. I closed my eyes and accelerated the car. I knew what I needed to do, but not today. Today, I just wanted to try to sleep, even though I knew that when I closed my eyes, he would still be there, waiting, always waiting.